When I was 16, I was put on the pill for irregular cycles. And this is where a lot of young women start their story. But unfortunately, it's also kind of where the story ends for a lot of them too. They stay on the pill for years and years, and they never understand why they had irregular cycles in the first place. But my story is a little bit different by the grace of God. And so I want to share my story with you today to hopefully change your story too. Hey everyone, my name is Haley and this is Truth and Fertility. So ever since I started my cycle, I always had irregular cycles. And around 16 years old is when I started to be like, is this still normal? I don't think so. So I went to the doctor. And what happens to a 16-year-old when she goes to the doctor saying that she has irregular cycles? She's put on the pill. So like I said, I was put on the pill, but I only actually stayed on it for about 2 months. And the reason for that is because it made me super moody. And by the end of those 2 months, I was over it and my mom was for sure over it. And so I just decided to get off of it. And after that, I never really looked into it again. I just kind of lived with these irregular cycles, irregular periods. And finally, when I was 18, at the time I was a part of my church youth group, and there was a talk given one day by this woman who talked about how she had actually learned about different reproductive issues with her body because she was charting her cycle, and how birth control isn't always the answer for, or really is never the answer for when you have these irregular cycles or painful periods or whatever it is, right? And so it was the first time that I heard that, there's another option here. And so I went up to her afterwards and just kind of picked her brain a little bit. And she told me about a doctor's office in my area that practices something called NAPRO technology. And I could do a whole other video on what NAPRO technology is, but just to keep it short and simple, it stands for Natural Procreative Technology. And so it's basically a women's health science that looks at the root of the problem instead of just saying, okay, here's the pill, cover it up. And then when you do start wanting to have babies one day, you got to deal with all of that over again, right? And so I go to this doctor's office, this new doctor's office, and the first thing they did is, instead of saying, well, here's the pill, they actually said, let's start charting your cycles, meaning I'm going to look for different signs that my body gives me to figure out when I'm ovulating and whatnot. And so I start charting my cycles. I learned how to do that. They also ordered some ultrasound tests. And through charting my cycles and the ultrasound test, they found out that I have something called PCOS, or polycystic ovarian syndrome. Now, I just want to pause there really quick, because when I was 16, going to the doctor, it's a random, a normal doctor, very smart woman still. But she just hands me the pill. There was no testing. There was nothing, no questions asked. It was just, here's the pill. And actually something I forgot to mention too, is that when I was 18, before I went to this new doctor, I saw a different doctor that didn't do the NAPRO technology stuff, just another regular doctor. And at this point I had the language enough to say, okay, what's wrong with my body is that I'm not having regular periods, which means I'm not ovulating regularly, which is an issue. And so when I went to this other doctor, before I went to the NAPRO doctor, she also just wanted to put me on the pill. And at this point, I knew I didn't want the pill. I wanted something different. And so I remember her asking me, she was like, do you mind if I ask, why don't you want to be on the pill? And I said, well, I'm not ovulating regularly right now, and the pill isn't going to help me ovulate regularly. And at this point, I'm 18, I'm not wanting a family or any of that. It just is for my health, right? I want to ovulate regularly. And she looks at me and she says, well, why do you want to ovulate? And I just remember thinking, you are a doctor and you are a smart one at that. And you're asking me why I want to ovulate. I am a woman who should have regular cycles. That means if I don't, that means that there's something wrong. It's kind of like I come in with a broken left arm and she says, oh, you don't really need that arm anyway because you write with your right one. It's like, no, there's something broken that needs to be fixed. So anyways, after I saw that doctor, then I went to this NAPRO doctor. I started charting my cycle. I had some ultrasound tests done. And again, they diagnosed me with something called PCOS. At this point, I'm around 19 years old. And so there was like a 2 to 3 year journey of figuring out what medications worked, what actually healed my body, what got me ovulating regularly and having a period regularly too. And so this 2 to 3 year journey, it was finding different medications, finding different dosages of those medications. I'm also in college, so I'm not having the best diet in the world either. And so I remember my doctor kept saying, diet, 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 you need to change your diet. And what college student wants to change your diet? None. So that was the last thing that I did. But I kept trying different medications. And then finally, I did do a diet change. And that basically was just a whole lot less sugar and a whole lot less carbs, which are like my 2 favorite food groups. So it really just was not fun. But I did it. And that's really what made the difference for me. And so again, 2 to 3 year journey of trying to heal my cycle. And for some women, it is going to be a lot more than just a diet change. It might even be surgery. It might be X, Y, or Z, but it is not going to be the pill, because all the pill was doing was suppressing the symptoms, kind of putting a Band-Aid on the situation. And then whenever I got off the pill, I went right back to having irregular periods. And so it didn't fix anything. So this diet change and the different medications I was on were the things that actually fixed it. And also I knew what was going on. Like I had an answer for why I was having these irregular cycles, right? Which so many women don't get that answer because they get put on the pill and that's it. And so and around this time too is when in college I met my husband. My husband was super on board with wanting to chart our fertility. And all throughout this time too, I was also charting just to be able to see, okay, when am I ovulating? Does this diet change help me ovulate better? Does this medication help me ovulate better, or more regularly, I should say? And so this journey, all of these things, while charting my cycle, I could see how it was affecting my hormones and how it was affecting my cycle. And so that it was getting more regular and I was ovulating, because before this, I wasn't even ovulating, which is a big, big problem. A lot of people are now starting to call ovulation the 5th vital sign, meaning if a woman is not ovulating regularly, there is something wrong, right? And the pill is not going to heal it. It's not going to fix it. It will suppress symptoms, but it will not actually get to the root of what's going on. And so I was learning all of this about just in my personal experience and my journey. And then this passion just like blew up in my heart. And I was like, okay, I need to tell other women this, because how many women are put on the pill at 16, just like me, and they stay on it, right? And they never know why they have irregular cycles. They never know why they don't ovulate regularly. And then they get to a point where they are married, they're wanting to have kids, and then they can't, and they're wondering why. And that would have been my story. And by the grace of God, it wasn't. When my husband and I got married, we wanted to have children right away, and it still took about 7 months, but we were able to conceive our first son pretty quickly right after getting married. And we would not have had that privilege would have not been for my journey as a single woman, even charting my cycle, healing my reproductive system, working with doctors that actually wanted to heal the root of it, right? I would not have the exact children that I have without this journey. And that's like bone shaking to me, right? I have a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and I'm actually pregnant with our 3rd. And these 3 children that I have, I would not have. The exact egg and the exact sperm that created these little beings that are a part of my family would not be around if I hadn't had this journey of naturally healing my cycles and naturally, starting to get my periods regular again. And by natural, I don't necessarily mean, well, it always has to be a diet change, or it's always, a naturopathic thing. Like, no, sometimes medication is necessary. Sometimes surgery is necessary. But when I say natural, I mean, we're actually getting to the root of the problem. We're not just covering it up. We're not just putting a Band-Aid on it. We're getting to the root. And so I keep saying for so many women, this is their story. And so I tell you my story because I want you to have hope that there is another option, and that birth control is not the answer to irregular cycles, to painful periods, to endometriosis, to acne, to whatever it is, whatever reason why you're on the pill. There is another option. So I would not have my children without discovering this other option, without charting my cycles, without working with a doctor to heal the root problems of this. For me, going this route, especially as a single woman, noticing there's something wrong and not putting it off right away. For me, noticing it right away, getting it fixed right away, that was the key. That was what changed everything for my marriage and for my future family. And so that's what I want for you. That is what I want for you. I want this journey for you. I want you to be healthy, and I want you to be off the birth control pill. I want you, or whatever birth control you're on, because I want you to get to the root of what is actually going on. So with these NaPro technology doctors, there are doctors that are trained in that specific method of medicine, specifically OBGYN medicine. And so I will link down below a site that you can just type in your location, and you will be able to find somewhere around your location where you can find a doctor that is trained in NaPro technology. So I'll put that in the notes down below, and please let me know if you have any questions. I'm kind of an open book, so I would love to hear your feedback and any questions if you want me to go further into, what happened here. I mean, that was pretty much the story, but again, I tell you this because I'm just so passionate about this. And that was the last thing too, is that because of my journey and because of all of this, I did start teaching natural family planning and charting on my own. And so at this point, I'm about 5 years into teaching women and couples how to chart their cycles. And I actually now work at that same OBGYN practice that I went to, who originally kind of found the root of what was going on. So it really came full circle. I'm now teaching natural family planning there. And I'm teaching women and I'm teaching couples how to chart in order to achieve pregnancy and to avoid pregnancy too. It can be used for both. And so it's really been just this privilege to help other women have this same story and to be able to heal their fertility. So again, let me know if you have any questions in the comment section down below. If this is your story too, like, praise be to God, that's awesome. Tell me about it. I would love to hear. And if you are in a situation right now where your doctor just said, that you need to go on the pill, or you've been on the pill for a while, I just want you to know that there is another option. And I want you to look into those options before you make that decision. So it was so nice talking to you guys, and I will see you again in my next video.